Does the Grascals version of Last Train to Clarksville sound familiar? It very well may, because that song has been recorded by lots of bluegrass bands over the years. But it may surprise you to learn that that song was actually written for the TV show The Monkees, about the fictional rock and roll band. Now, bluegrass bands of the 60s and 70s adopted rock and roll songs to stay fresh and relevant, especially folks like the Seldom Seen with their haunting version of the Byrds and Graham Parsons' Hickory Wind, and folks like J.D. Crowe with his bands The New South and their predecessor, the Kentucky Mountain Boys, who in that recording were led by the fresh young vocals of the one and only Tony Rice, and that's someone we're going to hear a lot more from in the rest of this playlist. But I picked their bluegrass version of Fats Domino's I'm Walkin' to show how the pioneers of rock and roll affected the future of bluegrass the same way that the pioneers of bluegrass affected the future and creation of rock and roll, with folks like Elvis Presley, whose first record ever was Blue Moon of Kentucky by Bill Monroe, as he mentioned at the beginning of that segment. And I really think that Bill's original song, Rocky Road Blues, is a perfect example of how his sound was incorporated into rock and roll music, and that's why in 1997 he was also inducted into the Rock and Roll Music Hall of Fame. Now, the immense popularity of rock and roll after its creation did take its toll on the popularity of bluegrass for a time, but the genre was able to stick around thanks in part to the folk music revival that soon followed. So up next on the playlist, we've got a couple bluegrass takes on some mid-century classic folk tunes here on Bill's Bluegrass Breakdown.